So it's my pleasure to open the conference Pastoral Care and Education in a Digitalized World, Theological and Anthropological Reflection on Church Practice in Actual Social-Cultural Conditions, here at Hussite Theological Faculty of Charles University. It is still the privilege of theological faculties here in Czech Republic, not only to provide higher education and to participate in formation of clergy, but also to participate in and create dialogue in interreligious and social themes, and develop research activities in religion and related fields. I'm very pleased today that we have here our guest from Protestant Church of Baden and also lecturing at the Heidelberg University, Dr. Gernot Meyer. As well as I'm glad to have here from Protestant Theological Faculty, Dr. František Štěch, who is with us online. Hi. And last but not least, on the program, we will also have our colleague currently serving in Ministry of Regional Development of Czech Republic, Eva Pavlíková. Also, we have here in person our dean, so I greet also Jiří Fogel, who joined us. And I wish us all to share interesting insights and inspiration. And I hope that we will each enrich ourselves and have also the time to discuss after each lecture, but the main discussion will be in the end of the conference. My lecture today are some thoughts for today's theme is define how is the church there for human. And before we ask this question, let's look at the specifics of Czech environment. As I mentioned at the beginning, it is still the privilege of theological faculties to have their own space, to support theological research, and to overlap into other disciplines. Among the theological disciplines, theoretical reflection on faith and analysis of the contemporary life of the church and society is one of the tasks of practical theology. By its very nature, practical theology is concerned with reflection on particular church traditions and theologies. In my paper, I will draw on a tradition specific to the Czech and Slovak environment, Hussite theology. And I will focus also on the mission of the church in the past and today. So first, let's take a look where its DNA comes from. Hussite or Czechoslovak theology is based on the Czechoslovak Church founded in 1920 as a new ecclesiastic community founded as a reform of the contemporary Roman Catholic Church and claimed the legacy of the Czech Reformation from the 15th century. According to my research, in the beginning, we can observe a strong motivation for enabling an ordinary person, to encounter the faith, to live the faith in community, but also independently and to understand and practice his or her spirituality according to his or her possibilities. Mission of the new church can be seen in activities that include an emphasis on, at first, speak their language. By this I mean not only the adequacy of ecclesiastic terminology according to age, for example, but above all using the national language, especially in liturgy, instead of Latin. Second, living religion. Nowadays we can say also living faith, living spirituality, because faith and personal life were intertwined not only in church but also in specific interest groups, for example, theater groups or some hobby groups. Democratic values has been supported in new state and also new church, where representing principles of freedom of conscience and religious belief. So it established space for lay participation in the leadership and the management of the church as an institution. And also it opens the understanding of ecumenical movement, and last but not least, it encourages active citizenship among their believers. Third, communicating the gospel for the use of people, for their spiritual growth. Communication of the gospel as never closed knowledge that must be newly understood and interpreted by each new generation. The gospel of Christ is only one, but must be always reinterpreted and transmitted in conditions of contemporary human life. As Jiří Vogel, systematic theologian and also the dean of theological faculty, the Hussite one, calls this principle hermeneutical tradition of Czechoslovak Hussite Church. The need of new understanding, which manifests itself in trust in scientific research and openness to the needs and life of the contemporary world. By analyzing contemporary documents, one can see that these tasks were lived by the practice of the Church until the beginning of the Second World War. However, the war and the two subsequent totalitarian regimes suppressed these emphases. An effort to build or continue in its mission was fully possible after the Velvet Revolution, 1989. The Church regained their freedom in the new democratic society. At this time, churches again began to address the question of their mission, their identity. And there are two levels to this question. What the identity is in church, what we see inside the church as a mission, and what is the life. And then the second level is telling us about what the people expect outside of the church, or maybe also inside, but also outside. So the focus is more outside of the church. And this is the environment that has been shaping from the 90s till the present time. So let us look a bit to the Czech society and the needs in religion, churches, and spirituality which the society is showing us today. We focus on Czech Republic, but many phenomena of the social life are similar due to the connectedness of Euro-American civilization. So, in what environment do churches operate now? At the beginning, I would like to mention eminent Czech philosopher Otakar Funda. He wrote about the postmodern age, which is expressed in the loss of the claim to subjective truth and is manifested in perspectivism, pluralism, and individualism. The loss of traditional role, governance, clarity, and predictability of human life leads to need to interpret events from one's own perspective. We can speak about contextuality, locality, awareness of, we are aware of the others to have their own perspective, which is shared or doesn't need to be. Then he mentioned pluralism. Man orient itself nowadays in the more difficult surroundings. The pluralistic perspectives could be in religion, politician perspectives, opinions, and so on. So it's something what we need to deal with also. And the third, individualism, can then be seen in the context of a loss of clear structure of life, a move away from an institutionalized way of living, and open up the one's own responsibility and choice for one's way of being in the world. Another view of contemporary times is described by sociologist Zygmunt Bauman, who also worked in Czechoslovakia. He speaks of a global or liquid society. There is a blurring of national boundaries based on the sharing of and trade in information, goods, and human capital, openness of thoughts and materials, scientific and technological discoveries. Bauman gives us an example. He speaks about new discoveries as television, cars, or internet. When we look at these three words Bauman is mentioning, probably they could seem to us not too new now. But also it's not so long time ago when it was interpreted. Internet was even in half of Czech household connected after the 2010. So this is just an example. It's not so long time ago. So in this perspective, we are now growing into adulthood with a group of people who have no experience of time without the internet. Now we have to count with the phenomenon of American writer and speaker on education, Mark Prensky, who described the world defining humans as digital immigrants and native digitals. Digital immigrants are people who were born and raised without digital technology. It is only in the course of their adult lives that some have learned to use mobile phones, the internet to write emails, read news, and communicate thoughts through social networks. On the opposite, digital natives are people he described from 1980. Here we can see that the Western world was a little bit further in front of us with Czech environment and post-communist lens. We can speak about this phenomenon a bit later. So digital natives, they are able to use mobile phones as part of their everyday life, use the internet as not just a device, but use it as part of themselves. They don't divide between online and offline world. And they understand internet as space for sharing, meeting, learning, gaining new experience, and they like to spend their free time there. The digital footprint is as much as part of our society as present the postmodern age and liquid society. In these big changes of the last decade, we can observe how Czech churches, and especially Czechoslovak Hussite Church, are coping with this. We can ask the question, how is their church with its mission in these days? Or what people expect from church today? First, how is the church here with its mission? For the reflection on current state of affairs with regarding to Czechoslovak Hussite Church, we can borrow the 3 points of the church's mission statement mentioned at the beginning. We asked, how does the church speak the language of people? That was the first point. Today, this is not a claim of the language of the nation, the time changed, but rather of the difference in the understanding of secular and religious language. To speak the language of the people is to translate and interpret religious symbols, naming, and events into a language which one already has an experience, to build on the starting points of the incoming person. Second, living religion. How does the church participate in a person's life, and how does a person live his or her religiosity in society. At a time when religion is becoming something private, we can say that in Czech Republic, from the research in 2021, just 9% of the people said that they are believers, but without the belonging of any denomination, and 13% of population identified themselves as members of church community. So here we see the change. Importance for the church to reach out these people with its activities must be in this way growing. And to live religion, practice in church structure, and to have the possibility to get involved in church and to be involved in social issues, the way could be to open, trusting, and authentic, welcoming environment. So that could be the focus here. And the third, communication of gospel for the use of people. How can be gospel communicated for the use of people nowadays? When we have language, we have safe environment, then we need to know what are people searching for. My 2018 research probe showed that people seek out the Czechoslovak Hussite Church more often because of their different needs. First is the need to accompany their beloved ones through the funeral ceremony. Second place was the need for pastoral care to help in their own life of faith. Third place was occupied by the need for baptism, and it includes catechetical preparation and the rite of joining the body of the Christ. Fourth place was the need to prepare for the wedding and to perform the wedding ceremony. Fifth place was the need for help in unexpected life situations, more oriented towards social and caritative assistance. In order to communicate the good news gospel for the use of today people, church could maybe emphasize to take an interest in people's needs, accompany them to personal spiritual growth, also be ready and open for their own spiritual growth. And the churches uses various tools for this mission, and we will hear more in my colleagues' lectures. To conclude, as we have tried to show in this paper social conditions and people's lives, that people's lives changed so much in the last decades, that is not only the church's task to find new ways to reach and to meet with people. The church, with its unique mission, has this very thing in its task, and the possibilities for transformation and action of this mission we have looked at together in this short reflection. My aim has also been to outline the field of the church's work and to set the stage for the future contribution in our conference with their specific focus. I conclude with a quote that speaks to Jesus' intention for his followers. Go to your journey. Go and meet the disciples for me. Go and proclaim the gospel. So he calls for action. Thank you for your attention.